How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at a new money making method and it is again an archaeology method because I'm kind of doing a deep dive in archaeology and doing some videos based on that. It is definitely my favorite skill in the game, so I always enjoy making these videos. Today's video is going to be a really awesome way that is not super AFK, unfortunately, but it's like a pretty relaxed method and will earn you between 10 and 15 million gold per hour. So let's jump on in and I'll show you how to do it. So in this method, we are going to be doing a spell called Sift Soil. So Sift Soil is something that you may be familiar with and is very similar to manually sifting the soil at the Archaeology Guild, but this is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be a way to make a ton of money versus just, you know, whatever you make over here, which is pretty good, but this makes a lot more, and I'm going to show you how to set it up and get it going. So in order to do this, you are going to need a minimum of 91 magic, the Guildmaster qualification, and lunar diplomacy. So that means that this is not going to be a super entry level method, but it is one that you will be able to start up decently early on, I guess, and then as you level up, it actually just gets better and better. Because I would also recommend having between 99 and 120 archaeology to make the most of this, and then level 50 summoning is also going to be something that is not required, but if you don't have it, it's going to dramatically reduce how much you make per hour, so it's definitely worth grabbing. So this is going to give you a ton of XP also. So it's going to give you over 500,000 magic XP, and that's without any kind of boosts or anything. So if you're using any kind of boost at all, it's going to be higher than that. And it's also going to give you over 100,000 archaeology XP. Now keep in mind though that the XP rates are going to vary a bit. The magic's going to be the same, but the archaeology XP is going to vary depending on your different boosts and what level you have while you're doing this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up our inventory very similar to what I have right here. We're going to need to have our archaeology outfit on, Grace the Elves, Broach the Gods like usual to get our spirits and stuff while we're doing this, and a staff that is able to give you the runes to cast the spell. So to cast the spell, you're going to need to have water and earth, which is why I'm wearing a mud staff, but you can wear anything that gives you water and earth. And then we'll also have to have astrals. So we want to put our astrals into the grasping rune pouch and then put them in our inventory. That way, put them in our gear. That way they're not in the inventory. Also, we are going to be able to cast this a lot, like really, really fast. So you're going to be able to cast this between 5.6 and 6,000 times per hour. So if you're planning on doing this for a long time, keep in mind it does require one astral per cast. So you're going to need a lot of astrals if you want to sit here for a long time. The next thing we're going to need to do set up is to have our binding contract Water Fiend. Now we want to have the Water Fiend, even though it's kind of expensive. They're about like 90,000 coins right now. And I know that's kind of expensive, but they do give you a 5% chance to duplicate resources, which does include getting resources like this one I just found on the ground. So as you can see right there, 22,692 just for those two pieces right there. So you can already imagine how fast this is going to add up in the money. So if you were to duplicate just like a couple of those, then I mean, you're going to pay for the Water Fiend so fast that it doesn't really even matter. So I would just really recommend you using the Water Fiend. I'm going to put this Water Fiend in here because I'm just, you know, showing you the guide. I'm not going to go ahead and get another one out, but it does give you a lot of extra. You can sit and do the math if you want to, but if you were to cast this 6,000 times in 1 hour, you're looking at maybe 300. I think that would be the math, 300 extra materials. So yeah, it's a lot. Next thing we're gonna need to have on us is gonna be our archaeological soil box. Now, what we're gonna need to do is to buy the soils. So what I did is I bought a bunch of soils. I've got almost 5,000 earth and clay. We got some saltwater mud, some ancient gravel. Depending on the prices of each one of the materials, and the reason why I'm not going to tell you which one the best one is absolutely is just because the fact the prices change dramatically over time. It really depends on what people are doing. You would think that earth and clay would be the most profitable one due to the fact that people are hunting tetra compasses, but for some reason it's usually not. I think ancient gravel is actually worth more than that, but anyway, it doesn't really 100% matter what the most expensive one is unless you are only one to do that one. But I'd recommend getting at least 2 or 3 different types of gravel just because of that way, or soil, just because that way you're able to have it look like this, where you've got multiple types of soil in your soil box without having to rebank. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be standing right over here. And then while we are standing right over here, we're going to be able to cast this spell and then simply deposit them into our material storage container. And we are not going to be using porters and stuff like that, even though you are able to use porters. So if you really felt like it for some reason, like, I mean, I guess if you wanted to make this extremely AFK, because you can cast 100 Sift soils before having to recast. So if you wanted to make this super AFK, then we could do something like this. We can go ahead and toggle the porters on. While the porters are on, we're going to hit Sift soil, and then we would just pick out whichever one we want to do and then click on make. And as you can see, while we're sitting here and doing this, it will send them all to the bank. So that is a super AFK way of doing it. You will still make money on the archaeology materials by doing this. So if you really did want to make it like ultra AFK, then you can go ahead and do it this way, where it just, you know, you cast it and then they're sent with porters. But you're going to burn through a lot of porters, which means you're going to be having to spend time crafting porters too, so just keep that in mind. But ideally what we're going to be doing though is we're going to be not using porters. And then if we're not using porters, oops, I clicked charge, my bad. If we toggle the porter off, then you'll see we'll start to fill up our inventory full of all kinds of goodies. Now here, give me 1 second. Let's go ahead and get a full inventory of this earth and clay. Let's give that a second to go. But as you can see, it's really relaxed. All you're going to do is cast the spell and then let it fill up your inventory. Once it fills up my inventory, we go ahead and up here and we'll go ahead and see how much this is all worth. So we have 123,929, which is really good. All of the different soils are different prices, but right now I think I paid about 2.5k for this soil. So this soil is about 2.5k, so we're looking at something like 60, 70k for the inventory, and then we ended up getting 124,000 back. So we basically doubled our money of how much we spent on just one inventory. And obviously you got to calculate the cost of the astral runes in there, but they're really not that bad. But then all you're going to do after you've made the inventory is just going to go ahead and put them into the soil box, or sorry, the material box, the container right here. And that's the reason why you want to be standing here, by the way, because if you're standing right here, then what you can do is you can just keep on clicking this material storage container and then recasting your spell, which you can also go ahead and take this spell right here and you can drag it onto your ability bar. And then what you can do is I can just go in here, customize keybind, click on 1 or whatever you want it to be. And then now every time I hit 1, it's just going to go ahead and auto cast. So that was the purple one. I can't remember what it's called. We'll see. And that will give me 161,412. So as you see, different ones have different values. So if you're wanting to do like the most profitable one ever, then you can check out the wiki and it'll tell you roughly what the most profitable one is. The issue with that is though, is that if you were going by the wiki, and that's the ancient gravel, sorry. So the ancient gravel is only 1462 to buy. So if you're able to buy it at 1462, then you're making a lot more money on ancient gravel. The earth and clay, it shows 2245, but I had to pay 2400 or 2500 before it even started to buy. So these different soils are often higher than what the GE says. So you have to calculate that into your prices. But if I was to just sit here and make all the different soils and whatnot, something to keep in mind, and this is where it's going to be, this is where it's really going to vary on the value of the materials and how much money you get back. And that's also another reason why I was saying don't really rely on whatever the wiki says the most profitable one is, even though right here we can see this is really profitable. But as you can see too, it varies depending on what you get. So you're not always guaranteed to get the best, like the high-end things. Sometimes you'll get a little bit lower inventory. But the thing with this is though, is that if you put these materials into the Grand Exchange and you put them higher than what the Grand Exchange mid is, they will almost always sell for much higher than what the Grand Exchange mid is. So if we look at these Blood of Orcus, for example, it says mid is like 11,260. You could try selling these for like 13,000 and they will probably sell. I don't know what their exact number is. I'm just giving you an example of a number. But I would take all of your materials and just put them for above the mid, and that'll make this a much more profitable method. It's very common for them to sell above mid because if you've ever gone to buy archaeology materials, it's actually most of the time very difficult to buy them at mid. So that is why I would really recommend doing that. And the main reason why that happens is because when you are doing archaeology itself, you're going to notice that you're going to be getting about half of the materials on your own by gathering them, and then the other half you're going to have to buy. And that's the reason why these are always expensive, is because of the fact that people have to buy them. And if you were going to really get into the different calculations of it and everything, that basically means that there is always going to be less materials than what people need, unless they're doing like, I don't know, caches and stuff. The last thing to note about this though is that the money per hour on this, depending on the prices of your materials, depending on which soil you're choosing, you're going to be making between 10 and 15 million gold per hour. So like I said, you are totally able to use the porters if you want to. Just keep in mind that you will make a little bit less money, actually quite a bit less money. You'll probably make about 5 million coins less per hour, which still does put this at, you know, 5 to 10 million per hour, even if you're doing that. So that's still pretty good. But just keep in mind though, you'll be having to spend all the time making the porters, which can be really annoying. And the last thing I want to note here too is that you are able to, as you can see right here on my screen, you are able to get artifacts from this. It has a very, very low rate of getting an artifact. I think the rate is like 1 in 1,000. So I really wouldn't count on you actually getting much artifacts from this unless you're going to do this for a very long time. But the artifacts are nice because sometimes you need them for collections, and then also some of these are actually worth quite a bit of money compared to how much they cost to restore. Like for example, some of them, you know, it might cost 100,000 in your materials to restore them, but then when you go and look at how much the components are when you disassemble them, then you can see that you'll make like 100,000 or 150,000 or sometimes even more by restoring them. So a lot of times whenever you see these different artifacts in here, that's actually like a little bit of a money bonus. It's actually not much, it's not a money loss or anything. And it can help you get some more XP while doing this. Like I said, this is already over 100,000 archaeology per hour. So if you're able to get the average of 5 or 6 extra artifacts per hour and they're worth a good amount of XP, then you can actually expect the XP from doing this to be something upwards of over 200,000 XP per hour, but it really depends on what artifacts you get. Overall though, that makes this a pretty fantastic method for both XP and money, which means that you can make 10 to 15 million gold per hour, and if you get really lucky on artifacts, you can score over 300,000 archaeology XP per hour and over 500,000 mage per hour. That's definitely a really, really, really good XP method, which is nice because most of the time whenever we're doing money-making methods, the XP is not the best, but in this case, it's pretty good. Anyway, guys, I will see you guys in the next video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Have a good one.